Hey everyone, and welcome to the Mae Cave. My name is Megan, and today I have another book review for you guys. So first, I'd like to thank LibraryThing early reviewers and Edgelight Publishing for giving me a free ebook copy of Tooth and Talon by Hernandez. Now this book is a sci-fi novel that I enjoyed so much that I went out and bought a physical copy because I just had to have a physical copy of it. And the cover is so beautiful. I really love that, the colors and everything in it. So this book is centered in the year 2323 around the humans and the main character, Oyavalette. Now the humans have expanded into the solar system beyond Earth. They're spacefaring creatures right now, and they also have nanomachines in their bodies which help them not only with everyday living in diseases and that kind of thing, but just to live longer. You can live for hundreds of years longer than they typically can. They refer to being immortal. I don't know if they technically are just by how long they can live, but they definitely have expanded their lifespan significantly. And because the humans have expanded their horizons, so to speak, they have a main government type called the Hominocracy, which kind of controls everything. And Oyavalette is a pilot for the Hominocracy. She is currently working as a pilot for a colony ship going out beyond the solar system to find a planet to colonize. Now, the planet that they find, they think is good for them, but then they find that there is another species already inhabiting this planet that they find, and this species is one that they have a very tragic history with, but the humans on the ship don't have many options beyond either going back home or spending the little fuel they have left to hopefully find another planet somewhere else. So they decide to stay at this planet and hopefully break tensions with this other species and at least coexist on the same planet, maybe not necessarily live with each other, but at least on different parts of the same planet. And then just kind of everything goes from there. I'm not even going to tell you what the species is because it's not told on the back of the book, and I'd like it to be a good, I'd like it to not be a spoiler for you guys because I think it's really interesting what the species is, where they came from, how they came about, and how they have evolved as not only as a species but as a culture. I think is such a great aspect of this book, and I really enjoyed that part of it. I also enjoyed the main character, Oyavalette. She is from the Caribbean on a made-up island called Chandeleur. I don't think I'm saying that correctly. I'll put it up here. Between St. Lucia's and Barbados. And she actually has her native language. She speaks it sporadically throughout the book, which I think is really great. I like that they put that in there for her instead of just speaking the standard language of humans in general, and that she has some culture behind her instead of just being a human. And her other colleagues also have that. One of them was raised on Venus, and I think she has Asian background. And it's really interesting to see that kind of cultural differences with them, because a lot of space age type of sci-fi or fantasy novels or video games, whatever that I see, humans are just kind of humans and they all have a standard language, and a lot of culture has just been kind of left behind. So I really enjoy seeing that in this book. I also I thought it was really great for the plot that these two different species met in such a small contingent, so there was only one ship of humans and one or two colonies of this other species. I felt like that was a great setting for hopefully breaking the tensions between these two species instead of having the whole of each species against each other, which of course isn't always great. Too many voices can really cause a lot of confusion. And so I think that was a great setting for everything that this book has. I also thought that the planet that they came to find was a really interesting setup. There's actually only one strip around the entire planet that is habitable. Everything else is either too hot or too cold or something like that. And I thought that was kind of interesting to have a planet that was that way. And I also enjoyed that the nanomachines that the humans use actually do play an interesting part in the story, because this other species do not have nanomachines, so it makes an interesting difference, because the species in general is stronger than a typical human, but now that the humans have nanos, it kind of makes the playing field more for the humans instead of just even. But the nanomachines are an interesting throw, so each species has actually kind of been genetically modified in some way, that of course I can't tell you for the other species. But overall, I really enjoyed this book. There's a lot of great things to this book. There's a lot of good little details, especially with the main character. There's actually something that she keeps that was kind of like a reminder of her grandmother, who is long past, that actually plays a part in the story. And I really just enjoyed the book overall. I do have some cons, though. One of the things is that the love interest wasn't the best. It wasn't the worst. It wasn't the most stereotypical ever. But it felt like there could have been more to it. Like, it was within the action of everything that was happening. I mean, I enjoyed who fell in love with each other, and I think it was very helpful to the general wanting of peace between the two different species. But I think that there should be more, and I can't wait to see what else there is there for these two people. I'm hoping there will be more books to see that. The other thing I didn't care too much for, but now I kind of do, now thinking on it, there was a character that really had this prejudice against this other species. So this character is human. He had a very great prejudice against this other species, dating back to this history that he had, because he was there for this history because of their immortal-like stature with the nano machines. And he was so prejudiced that he just didn't believe anything they did would be okay. He was so against them, he just wanted to kill them all and take the planet for themselves. And there's a certain point where something happens to him and he really kind of loses his mind over this, and he really is kind of like an antagonist for a part of the book, and he causes a lot of issues for the other species and the humans. And at first I didn't like him. I thought, man, this guy's just really an asshole and he really just needs to go away. But now that I think about it, I think he was good for the plot line. There, you have to have someone like that, because otherwise it wouldn't be realistic that no one would have these kinds of prejudices, even with the history, the shared history of these two species. So, but he really was the only, I mean, it wasn't the only antagonist, but the general plot itself with the history of these species was more the antagonist to the plot and the storyline than an actual person or character was. But I did enjoy that no character was inherently good or evil, and they were just all across the line and just trying to live and save each of their species without, because they each didn't, of course, trust each other, so that played a big role in it. One of the other things I didn't like is that the colonists that were in cryo, they eventually woke up before they got on the planet, and something happened to them, and while this thing was happening, there was no talk from the colonists. It was just kind of like, okay, this thing is going on, the main character is dealing with it, and that's it. And they had some say once they got to the ground, but I felt like there would have been more for them during this, a lot more questions, a lot more demands, and like, what is going on, and this, that, and the other, but they weren't, and I felt like that would have added to the story to have these colonists voicing their opinions, because it's their lives too that are on the line here. And lastly, one last con I have is that the humans, when they first came upon the planet, they were able to get into the radio waves going across the planet for their internet and that kind of thing, and they got the local name for the planet, and they couldn't quite translate it, but somehow the captain knew what the word was and said, just tag it as Quetzalcoatl, which I don't think I'm saying correctly, and we'll just go from there. And then when one of the humans went to the planet, when they interacted, both sides called the planet the same name, but didn't question how both sides had the same name for the same planet. For instance, the other species should have questioned why the humans had named it this and didn't, it's like, well, this is our name, were you like tapping our internet or something? I felt like there should have been more. When you have a whole planet that with two different species, they could have named it completely different names, but somehow they had the same name. Even if the humans had seen what the name was, the other species should have questioned it, and I felt like that was a little just kind of thrown in there, like, okay, there's a name for the planet, let's go for it. So that could have been done a little bit better, but otherwise it's not like a deal breaker for me. So overall, I really enjoyed Tooth and Talon by Alex Hernandez. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. I highly recommend it to anyone who likes sci-fi, especially that has to do with genetic engineering, because that does play a heavy role in the plot of this book. But I just highly recommend it to anyone. I think it's a great book. I love it. I love the cover. I love the characters. I'm really hoping there's more books to the series. I don't know if there are or if there will be, but it only came out this past year, so maybe there could be. But I guess that's it for now. Let me know what you guys thought down below in the comments. If you guys are interested in this book, I will, of course, link everything down below for this book, the publisher and the book, of course, and everything. You can find it on Amazon. I don't know if there's anywhere else that sells it. But I really love this book, and let me know what you guys thought down below in the comments or anything you want to say. And I will see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in.